Contrast+Single female Lead+Zheng Tai+Light novel. What kind of spark can be sparked by the love between short-legged little Zhengtai and 180-legged senior sister? What is there between two people who should not have crossed paths but fall in love at first sight? Why, she keeps staring at me. Can you say, does she like me? Not right. Not right. Not right. She must be mocking me. But her big long legs, I envy you so much, classmate. What's your name? Why? Why did she boldly ask my name in public? Do you mean she wants to mock me? Using her long legs to mock my short legs. It must be like this. My name is Tai. Laugh at me. Laugh at me. I can handle it, I've been mocked for so long anyway. It's okay, it's okay. But I also want to be praised by such a leggy senior. Damn it. She kept staring at me for what's so beautiful about my short legs? If you want to say it, hurry up and say it. I'm also I have expectations. I really like you. My short legs must be ugly, right? I knew you. Sigh, what did you just say? I really like you. What? Chapter 1. Confession at First Meeting. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. On the pitch-covered playground, it was empty, as if welcoming the diffuse sunlight. The surrounding area of the entire teaching building is very quiet, and no one likes to stay outside under the scorching sun. However, two figures happened to stand there. Dida sweat continuously dripped down, gradually wetting the boy's collar. The black hair sticking to his forehead kept dripping with sweat, quietly entering the corner of the boy's eyes, making him unable to resist blinking. The young man is very small, and his slightly frail physique seems out of place among high school students. At this moment, the boy's body was completely covered by a figure. In fact, the young man's physique allows him to find shelter at any time under the scorching sun. After all, every tall figure is his natural shelter. He always does that. Lower your head and stand perfectly in the shadow, obtaining the shade that others cannot obtain. However, now he used all his strength to tilt his head back, even though his eyes, which he wanted to close due to sweat droplets, forcefully opened them. What did you just say? The boy said incredulously. The boy's name is Tai, and he is a senior high school student at Feichuan High School. Today is his first day in senior high school, but now he is late. He was late for class for the first time in high school. And now, he is confessing to a girl who is also recognized as the school flower goddess of Feichuan High School. By Lianxin. I said I accept your confession, and I will be your girlfriend from now on. Bai Lianxin bent down slightly, her bright eyes met with Tai, wanting to see her face clearly. The long hair slid down the shoulder blades, as if due to the sunlight shining through, a slight golden glow flickered between the few strands. Bai Lianxin is recognized as the school flower of Feichuan High School. She has long hair that reaches her waist, a delicate oval face that is impeccable, and a pair of starry hazy eyes hidden under her slender eyelashes. Her snow-white neck extends above the striking collarbone, making it impossible to move her eyes. A pair of long legs that can envy the vast majority of people gives her a proud figure. She smiled, the pear vortex was shallow, and the scorching light made her cheeks incredibly rosy, emitting waves of redness. Tai stared blankly at the girl in front of her, with a memory of what had just happened. Outside the teaching building. The warm summer sun always shines on every inch of land in the school, and the slightly stuffy air makes people feel a bit restless. He was blocking the scorching summer day with his hands as he walked towards his classroom. It was a bit late today, and most of the students had already arrived. Without any shade, he had to lower his head and walk forward with his head buried. At this point in time, there wouldn't be anyone left, right? He thought to himself. Not even noticing that there were people before and after me, it's so hot today too, eh. Gu. Too. Gu Tai never expected someone to call out his name. Just as he was about to look back, a big hand patted Gu Tai's shoulder directly. Yo. Gu Tai just lifted her eyes and saw clearly that the person in front of her was his classmate, Jet Song. Hey. Why don't you look up? I called you out. Gu Tai kept lowering her head, and Jet Song patted Gu Tai's shoulder again. It seems that Gu Tai didn't turn his head because of the sun, so Jet Song walked in front of him and happened to be able to block the sun. Come on, this is the best way to prevent you from being exposed to the sun. What's wrong with Jet Song? Didn't we just get to know each other? Why do we look like old friends? Have we seen each other before? Jet Song's excessive enthusiasm left Gu Tai somewhat puzzled. However, as she was going to be late, Gu Tai wanted to lift her foot and leave. At this moment, Jet Song seemed to have seen some rare treasure and said excitedly. Ah, Gu Tai, is that one in front of me with a white heart? Wow, that exaggerated figure, that perfect body curve. Take a look, buddy, how about confessing? Gu Tai, with such a good opportunity in front of him, why don't you speak? Song Lianjie tilted his head and glanced at Wei Qisheng. However, Gu Tai soon looked at Bai Lianxin again, his eyes very hot. I'm okay, I don't really know the school flower, Gu Tai said in a slightly embarrassed low voice. What are you saying? The voice is a bit low, I didn't hear it very clearly. Jet Song turned around again, wanting to listen carefully. If you didn't hear clearly, you didn't hear clearly. What are you asking? Seeing Gu Tai speaking, he fell silent. Jet Song didn't ask any more questions, but turned around and stared at the school flower by Lianxin in front of him. This is the school flower, but many people have failed to confess their love, and every time they go to confess their love to Bai Lianxin, they will be ridiculed. Therefore, those who still dare to confess their love are called warriors, and I really want to give it a try. How about it? Do you want to go together? What's going on with this person's brain circuit? How could anyone have confessed to the same person together? Isn't this just a fool? But, warriors. This name is indeed very attractive, okay. Gu Tai, since you're not talking, then I'm going to confess my feelings. No, I have to take a brave step today, I'll give it a try too. Immediately, Gu Tai lifted her heavy steps and walked forward, but still kept her head down. White. White, white. Loved classmates. Gu Tai, who was not far away, couldn't help but sneer at Jet Song's words. It turns out he would also be nervous when confessing to the school flower. Then it's okay. If I were nervous, at least there would be someone to accompany me. When I confess later, it won't be like this, Are you from the same class? What are you muttering about here? You want to confess? At this moment, a sweet voice suddenly reached Gu Tai's ear. Gu Tai was momentarily taken aback, not expecting the voices of others. However, where did this sound come from? It seems quite close, and it feels like behind me. Gu Tai quickly turned his head and his eyes widened. Don't. Gu Tai Gang shouted as he was covered by the people behind him. Don't say it so loudly, I'll let you go. Gu Tai saw that the person in front of her seemed to be in the same class, so she didn't say a word, and that person also let go. Are you going to confess later? The person behind asked curiously, apparently hearing Gu Tai's self-talk. At this moment, Gu Tai's cheeks were visibly red with the naked eye. Did the person in front of you fail to confess? The person didn't continue to ask, but looked at Jet Song in front. May I ask if you have anything to do with me? It seems like there's no point. Listening to this voice is a rhythm that must be rejected, and I say, it's impossible to succeed. Gu Tai sneered and mocked in her heart, and I knew that it would depend on my demeanor later. At this moment, Jet Song had already walked up to Bai Lianxin, took a deep breath, and then loudly said, "Can you be my girlfriend?" Gu Tai looked at Jet Song ahead and found it difficult to understand. Ah. I really said it, this guy is not shy either. Even though he doesn't know you well, he just confessed. It seems that only such a fool can do such a thing. Sure, must have been rejected, right? How could you possibly agree in this situation? It must be Why, I actually agreed. Really? Jet Song lifted his head and looked up at Bai Lianxin in surprise. But next, Bai Lianxin smiled faintly and took a few steps back to distance herself from Jet Song. Cheating you, Bai Lianxin paused word by word, speaking slowly, while Jet Song's original surprise and joy disappeared instantly, and he scratched his head slightly awkwardly. Well. It's okay, I'm just trying. I know I'll definitely fail. Ha. Jet Song awkwardly scratched his head and turned his head away. At this moment, Bai Lianxin seemed to notice the two of Gu Tai and kept looking towards this side. Gu Tai, who was delighted by Jet Song's failed confession, suddenly felt like she had been hit hard again. Little Zhengtai. Where are you looking? Xiao Zhengtai. Gu was taken aback for a moment, and his eyes gradually looked up before he could see clearly the appearance of the girl in front of him. The girl in front of me is also a standard beauty, with exquisite facial features, big eyes, and beautiful eyes like clear waves of autumn water. Her small face also makes people look very cute. However, at this moment, the girl in front of her was looking at Gu Tai with a "I understand" expression. Your friend's confession failed. Aren't you going to give it a try? Just now, you said you also want to confess. The girl urged with a smile. Ah. How could it be, I? Before Gu Tai could completely deny it, the girl in front of him forcibly turned him around and pushed him forward. During this period, Jet Song, who was feeling lost, passed by the two of them. When he saw the girl pushing Gu Tai, his eyes widened, as if passion had reignited. He stopped in place and said, "This is another beautiful woman. Do you want to find time to confess to her again?" Just now, he was still feeling a bit disappointed, as if he had found his life goal again. He stood still, staring straight ahead. When the girl saw Jet Song's broad face, she smiled slightly and said nothing more. What are you doing? Let go of me. Gu Tai tried her best to break free, but to her surprise, the girl in front of her was so strong that she could only let her push her like this. Love heart, love heart. At this moment, Bai Lianxin, who had just turned around again and laughed when she saw the girl shouting her name. However, when Bai Lianxin saw Gu Tai, who had been bowing her head and not speaking, she stared blankly at the short, little Zhengtai, in front of her. Her eyes were surprised, but there seemed to be a different kind of expectation. At this moment, Gu Tai, who had been keeping her head down, suddenly felt a scorching gaze staring at her. Through the cracks in her long hair, Gu Tai observed the school flower in front of her. She is really tall. And not only does she have long thighs, but her leg shape is also so beautiful. The legs that look soft are just right without any extra fat, and why are they bare legs? Gu Tai tried her best to lift her eyes up, wanting to know what Bai Lianxin was wearing now. Ah, love, why are you doing this again? If you fold your pants on top, your calves will get sunburned. The girl behind Gu Tai reminded her not to forget to increase her strength while speaking to prevent Gu Tai from running away. Is that so? It's too hot, so did you stack your pants legs on top? Ha! This can also be considered a common way to dissipate heat in summer. Isn't that okay? In just a little while, when I got to the classroom, I put it down, so. What do you want to do? At this moment, Bai Lianxin still kept looking at Gu Tai, seemingly caring about her. Just. What are you doing pushing me over here, you guy? Are you trying to embarrass me? Humph, I disappointed you. I wouldn't make a fool of myself so easily. Quick answer, isn't it asking you? Hey, hey. Suddenly, Zhengtai felt a burst of heat coming from her ear and her body trembled. Hurry up, waiting for you. Now is a good opportunity to confess to the school flower, the girl said with a smile. At this moment, the two of them were very close, which made Zhengtai very shy. After all, this was the first time he had been so close to a girl. After seeing Zhengtai's gaze, the girl smiled and was very curious about the shy boy in front of her. Love asked you something, don't you have something to do? Originally, Zhengtai was a bit anxious, and with the urging of the girl, he also worked hard and suddenly looked up. Chapter 2. Confession of the School Flower Successfully. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ah, this is the real beauty. Long and straight thighs, a symmetrical figure, what should be prominent, what should be thin, and such a perfect face. Slightly sweating skin is smooth and delicate, and cold white skin is the favorite of many people. Under the scorching sun, it seems that only this fair and tender skin has received the favor of the goddess of beauty, as if it will never be tanned under any circumstances. Zhengtai was determined to cherish his first confession, forcing himself to look up and coincidentally met by Lianxin, who was bowing her head. At the moment when Zhengtai looked at him, he froze. These eyes seemed to not belong to this world, and the sparkling autumn water seemed to be swimming in the starry sky, making it impossible for people to extricate themselves. However, soon Zhengtai noticed something else. Alas, what's wrong with this woman? Why is her face so red? Is it too hot? I think so, after all, I've sweated so much. Ah, the sweat is already going to flow into my clothes. You should wipe it off quickly, Gu. Classmate, what's your name? Bai Lianxin bent down, looking forward to what Zhengtai would say next. Why? Why would she be so bold to ask my name directly? But did she just want to say my name without saying it? No, no, how could such a school flower know my name? Do you mean she wants to mock me? Using her long legs to mock my short legs? It must be like this. My name is Zhengtai. He, who was already shy, felt nervous even as Bai Lianxin boldly gazed at him, unable to speak clearly. So, what are you going to say? Bai Lianxin gently raised her lips. The two small dimples on both sides of her cheeks were very obvious, adding a touch of beauty to Bai Lianxin's heart. Yes, I want to talk about things. What's going on? Zhengtai's eyes swayed back and forth, afraid to look at Bai Lianxin. The momentary nervousness caused his brain to crash and he forgot what he was doing here. Puff. Bai Lianxin looked at Zhengtai in front of her and covered her mouth, laughing, while the girl behind her seemed to find it very interesting and smirked. Zhengtai closed her eyes, carrying inexplicable expectations, and spoke loudly to Bai Lianxin. I like you, can you be my girlfriend? The white heart in front of her was so perfect that it seemed out of place with her, which made Zhengtai's mind tremble. Is it? Zhengtai's voice suddenly became very quiet, watching the shadows of the two people intertwined on the ground. Even though Bai Lianxin emphasized it so much, Zhengtai still found it unbelievable. Is it that simple? What others have been licking for such a long time that they cannot get, but have given it to themselves, which makes Zhengtai a bit flattered. Ding ding. The sudden ringing of the class bell shattered the wonderful atmosphere between the few people. After hearing the bell, the girl and Jet Song both became nervous at the same time, but Bai Lianxin and Zhengtai still didn't make any movements, just stared at each other in confusion. And later, Jet Song took the first step. Hurry up, Zhengtai. The first class is for old Wang. This is the first class we have for old Wang after our 3rd year of high school. What, Lao Wang's class? The girl behind Gu Tai was also shocked when she heard it. Unable to care about catching Gu Tai, she ran to Bai Lianxin's side. Love, hurry up and leave. Lao Wang can't be late for class casually, otherwise. Oh, Xiaoqian, it's okay. You go first, I'll be there right away. Bai Lianxin seemed indifferent, without any nervousness, waving her hand to let Xiaoqian leave first. Xiaoqian is the girl who just urged Gu Tai. At Feichuan High School, Bai Lianxin's heart sank. The best-looking person is Si Xiaoqian, and the two of them are also good girlfriends. Seeing that Bai Lianxin had no intention of leaving, Si Xiaoqian was taken aback for a moment, then chuckled lightly and gave Gu Tai a slightly meaningful glance before turning around and leaving. However, Gu Tai was not so relaxed. Although he did not leave, his heart was not so relaxed. Isn't Lao Wang the homeroom teacher? If you're late, it should be pretty bad, right? However, should Bai Lianxin be in the same class as me? Gu Tai glanced at Bai Lianxin a few times, but still looked relaxed. Never mind, if she doesn't leave, I won't leave for now. But this is not the most crucial, it's now the stage where the two are alone. Do you think she wants to play with me well and then reject me? Gu Tai looked up at Bai Lianxin, her eyes full of doubt. Poochie. Before Gu Tai could say anything, Bai Lianxin laughed at Gu Tai's lack of action. The girl's smile is always full of dreams, and the sound of wind chimes shaking comes from Bai Lianxin's throat. The crisp sound is very comfortable to listen to. Gu Tai can never grasp why girls suddenly burst into laughter, but the only thing he is certain of is that Bai Lianxin is at least happy now. At this moment, Gu Tai's ears were filled with this wonderful laughter, and he fell silent, unsure of what to say. At this moment, Bai Lianxin whispered directly to Gu Tai, "What if I say, I'm waiting for my boyfriend?" Ah! Gu Tai felt the heat coming from behind her ears and burst into a cold sweat, retreating in succession. I think I made a mistake. Then I have to leave too. I'm leaving. I won't reveal today's events, I don't think anyone can say anything about it. Gu Tai seemed to realize something and quickly covered her mouth, lowered her head, and headed towards the teaching building. It's terrible, how could you say what you're thinking in your heart before taking a step? Bai Lianxin reached out and pulled Gu Tai back. Gu Tai looked up at Bai Lianxin, and at that moment, Bai Lianxin was staring at herself without blinking. This made Gu too embarrassed. I have to leave first. Gu Tai raised her foot and wanted to leave again, but just as she passed by Bai Lianxin. Surprisingly, Bai Lianxin grabbed Gu Tai's shoulder again and felt her palm grab her. Gu Tai turned around and looked at Bai Lianxin, unsure of what she was going to do. Just as Bai Lianxin was about to say something, the corner of her mouth curved slightly. Suddenly, she saw a figure not far away. She smiled first, then seemed to have seen something terrifying. Her eyes widened sharply, and her chest continued to rise and fall. Gu Taizheng was about to follow Bai Lianxin's gaze, as if he saw someone approaching, but just as he was about to look up carefully. Run quickly! Bai Lianxin shouted. Before Gu Tai could react, she was suddenly pulled by Bai Lianxin and ran towards the teaching building. What? Going back to the classroom? Not yet, the teaching director is coming here and needs to run quickly. Bai Lianxin clearly felt a little nervous. Yes, the teaching director is a presence that every high school student fears. Director of Education. Director of Education. Gu Tai's eyes widened instantly. If the teaching director finds out that the two of them are not attending class and are alone here, it will not be a simple punishment. Run! Gu Tai grabbed Bai Lianxin's hand instead, but for a moment she didn't know where to run. At the moment of seeing Bai Lianxin, Gu Tai realized. Is the love heart laughing? No, how could it be? We still need to run quickly. If you go back to class now, there won't be enough time. The teaching director seems to be coming soon, but there's nowhere else to go, and other classes are also in class. Go to the restroom. Bai Lianxin pointed to the nearest room marked with the restroom symbol. Gu Tai didn't care about anything for a moment and ran straight to the toilet. Chapter 3. Forced entry into the women's toilet. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In a girls' restroom in the third year of high school, Gu Tai and Bai Lianxin were huddled closely behind the door, carefully listening to the footsteps outside. With the footsteps of the teaching director fading away, the two finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, Gu Tai realized that there were many problems. Why do I have to follow into the girls' restroom, and why does Bai Lianxin keep pulling me? Also, why does Bai Lianxin always bend down and look down at herself? I can't bear it. Gu Tai. Ah. What's wrong? Gu Tai quickly turned around, and Bai Lianxin leaned against her shoulder, constantly exhaling hot air. The already hot weather kept the two of them so close, causing the temperature between them to continue to rise. What is this? Gu Tai felt some liquid dripping on her shoulder. Before Gu Tai could figure out what it was, Bai Lianxin distanced herself from him again. I want to go to the bathroom, do you want to be with me? What? Invite me to go to the bathroom together. This is no longer a normal topic for male and female classmates to talk about. But what the hell is going to the bathroom together? Do you mean to be honest with each other? Or is it that the school flower in front of me turned out to be an idiot girl? No, Gu Tai, don't express your disgusting thoughts. Isn't this? Okay. Didn't you? Just wait for your boyfriend. Gu Tai said, trembling. Unexpectedly, the next second, Bai Lianxin let out a burst of laughter, but still tried to suppress her voice. The boyfriend I'm talking about is you. Me. Is it me? Gu Tai is still a bit confused at this moment, unable to understand the situation. But you know it's not good to stay in the women's restroom. Don't hurry out yet, or do you think the women's restroom is good? In an instant, Bai Lianxin scolded Gu Tai again, but there was also a hint of laughter in her speech. Oh, I'm leaving now. Gu Tai looked confused, but quickly got up and left. And behind her, Bai Lianxin pressed her fingers against her lips, looking at the short Gu Tai, her eyes couldn't help but become blurred. I didn't expect us to come into contact in this way, and it started as a couple from the beginning. Gu Tai. From now on, you will be me alone. After Gu Tai walked out of the women's restroom with a blush on her face, her heart was filled with thoughts. What did I just do? Surprisingly, I entered the women's restroom that I wanted to go in before but didn't dare to. And I went with the school flower Bai Lianxin. Oh, by the way, I even confessed successfully before. That should be a success, it should be, but what exactly did she mean in the end? What should I do if I'm played with? However, it's not bad to be played with by the school flower, after all, it's a beautiful school flower. Unconsciously, Gu Tai walked to the door of the class. Class 10 of Grade 3, also known as the strength-oriented class, is filled with high-achieving students. So there are very few people who are late for class, and at this time there are two people outside the classroom, with gloomy faces and nothing to do. After seeing the two people, Gu Tai immediately panicked in her heart. Yo, Gu Tai, you've finally arrived. Jet Song waved his hand as a signal for Gu Tai to pass by. Can you stop pretending to be so familiar with me? I don't want to get too close to you. A person who confesses their love after seeing the school flower has failed, and I won't admit it to you. But if I say that, it's still because of him that I successfully confessed. If he hadn't confessed, I wouldn't have confessed either. Gu Tai walked to the other side without even entering the classroom. He knew very well that even if he entered, he would still scold him. It was better to stand here and pass the test. At this moment, Xiao Qian suddenly looked towards Gu Tai. After seeing it, Gu Tai's face was full of reluctance. What about love? Toilet. Ah, what did you do then? After all this time, did you say you went to the bathroom with her? Why do these two people have such similar thinking logic? No wonder they are good girlfriends playing together. Gu Tai didn't know how to answer, so she had to tell the truth. After finishing speaking, Xiao Qian immediately laughed. Ha ha ha. We're chased by the head teacher to the women's restroom. And they both squatted there for over 5 minutes. Didn't something happen again? Xiao Qian seems to not care at all about Bai Lianxin. He asks whatever he wants, even if it involves some personal questions about Bai Lianxin. However, since Xiao Qian doesn't even know, how could Gu Tai know? You guy, you insist on asking me why. So far, I just haven't said much to you. Is that how I get to know you? Or is this the privilege of a beautiful woman? Gu Tai used her excessively long hair to block her eyes, and from this angle, she could see Xiao Qian's body without being noticed. Perfect. But why don't you go to the boys' restroom and insist on running into the girls' restroom with Bai Lianxin? Or do you have any special hobby that you already like to enter the girls' restroom? Xiao Qian looked at Gu Tai with a mischievous smile on her face, with a feeling of breaking through the clay pot and asking the whole question. Gu Taiping often hated this kind of person, but when he saw Xiao Qian's beautiful face, he suddenly lost some dislike, but still wanted to roast. You just need to ask a few questions, do you have to ask so many? Is it useful? However, under the strong demand of Xiao Qian, Gu Tai still spoke up. He remembers when he just ran to the restroom door, he wanted to run to the boys' restroom. But Bai Lianxin had been holding onto her arm at that time, not letting go at all. Gu Tai also wanted to break free, but in the end, there was still no way. Well, I didn't expect Xiao Liangxin to really accept you, this little Zhengtai. Xiao Qian stared at Gu Tai with a smile, and suddenly reached out and tapped Gu Tai's small face. Although Gu Tai is very short, she has a face that is very suitable for short stature, coupled with her slim figure, so she was called Little Zhengtai by the previous class members. This is also the name that Xiao Qian is referring to now. I don't know who you are yet, Gu Tai said again. Although I know that Bai Lianxin calls her Xiao Qian, I still don't know the specific name Gu Tai. However, as soon as he asked this question, Xiao Qian cast a strange look. You don't even know me. Xiao Qian pretended to be surprised, but it was indeed strange that her name had spread throughout the entire high school campus. It can be said that everyone knows about it. I didn't expect to meet someone who didn't know me yet, let alone the same class, shortly after entering the 3rd year of high school. Suddenly, Xiao Qian thought of something again. Don't tell me, love is also something you just met. Almost so, I only found out after listening to Jet song. Ah. Xiao Qian's mouth widened in surprise. After a few seconds of silence, I looked into the distant sky. God, how could you create such a closed human? Let him go back to the furnace and remake. Hey, can you stop being so obvious? I'm still listening here. Mrs. Gu can only complain about it in her heart. Okay, since you don't know me, I'll officially introduce myself to you. I'm the famous Si Xiao Qian, who has always been in the top 3 of the school, and is also known as the school flower twin star along with Bai Lianxin. Do you know? Who would say they are famous? Hey. Gu has too much to complain about. But at this moment, Jet song also came over. Xiao Qian, actually, the person in front of you is often the top student in the grade, Gu Tai. After Jet song said something with a wicked smile, he didn't speak again. But this one sentence made Si Xiaoqian's mouth twitch. Since you're the first in the grade, that should be enough to be on an equal footing with me. Did you say you didn't know anything about me before? Hey! Not long after, the bell rang for the end of class. At this moment, the students in the class came out one after another, just a trend of leaving quickly. They knew that old Wang was also coming out, and he was in a bad mood. And Gu Tai-san was also prepared to be reprimanded. However, why hasn't Bai Lianxin come back yet? Gu Tai is a bit curious. At this moment, a middle-aged man with only a few strands of hair walked out, and as soon as he came out, he looked straight at the three people outside. Just as he was about to speak, Bai Lianxin suddenly came from behind. Gu Tai looked up at Bai Lianxin walking towards her and couldn't help but marvel. Although wearing school uniforms, truly beautiful people can bloom with a different temperament at any time, which is the truth that Gu Tai realized after seeing Bai Lianxin at this time. As everyone's dream lover, Bai Lianxin has an extraordinary temperament as soon as she appears, with beautiful long hair falling on her waist and delicate facial features that are lovable. Almost all teachers like Bai Lianxin, a student who is both excellent in character and education and beautiful. Lao Wang is no exception. Chapter 4. Strong Kiss Upon Coming Up. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Seeing Bai Lianxin walk over, Lao Wang's serious expression just now instantly relaxed a bit. Is this a double standard? Mrs. Gu couldn't help complaining about it. Love classmate, why didn't you come to last class? Old Wang's voice changed slightly due to his forced smile. The students around didn't dare to get too close due to Lao Wang's influence, but they also stood not far away and whispered something. After hearing Lao Wang's question, Bai Lianxin immediately frowned and covered her stomach with both hands, her face slightly painful. Teacher, actually, I just came to that place and it hurts too much, so I haven't been attending class yet. Originally, I wanted to come, but on the way, I met Gu Tai, who was also late because of me. Now I want to apologize to you. Bai Lianxin's voice was delicate and full of magnetism, which made middle-aged Lao Wang's heart skip a beat. Immediately say, well, then it's okay. If you still feel unwell, you don't need to attend the next class. For physical education classes, you can't exercise too hard. If you want someone to help you, you can ask Gu Tai to help you. Old Wang seemed to have not even considered why it was Gu Tai bongs Bai Lianxin. Generally speaking, shouldn't Si Xiaoqian help Bai Lianxin? This old guy can't think anymore when he sees a beautiful woman. However, Gu Tai glanced at Si Xiaoqian again, feeling somewhat puzzled. Why do beautiful women have different feelings for Si Xiaoqian and Bai Bai? What are you looking at me for? To accompany your love heart. Si Xiaoqian seemed to have no concern that Bai Lianxin did not let her go. On the contrary, he actively urged Gu Tai past. At this moment, Jet Song suddenly placed his hand on Gu Tai's shoulder and said, "Brother, I support you. Stand up for your sister. You failed man." Gu Tai let out a heavy breath and then walked through Old Wang to Bai Lianxin's side. When Gu Tai came, he saw the look in Lao Wang's eyes, and now he probably knows why Lao Wang didn't care and left with Bai Lianxin. This is simply treating oneself like a child. Perhaps being short is also a benefit. Can you travel with the school flower for free? Let's go then. Bai Lianxin was also filled with joy as she watched Gu Tai slowly walk by, and then the two walked out of the teaching building. Wow, being able to walk with Bai Lianxin, what kind of luck has this kid had? Isn't that Gu Tai? Who is Gu Tai? Is she very famous? Gu Tai, you don't even know. Our school's famous little Zhengtai, who has always been the top student in her grade, surprisingly, you don't know. Hee, which good person would go see their grades? After walking out of the corridor, Gu Tai slowly looked up. He couldn't stand the voices of others discussing behind their backs. As the class bell rang again, a dense group of students had already appeared on the distant playground. This class is a physical education class, so most people came to the playground early. And Bai Lianxin and Gu Tai quickly walked to the school clinic. The medical room is very small because there are hardly any major incidents happening at school, and most things like colds and abrasions can be resolved on their own. So there are very few people here, and the doctors here are not often there either. Now it's in an empty state. Bai Lianxin stood in opposition to Gu Tai, but Gu Tai kept her head down and her eyes fixed straight ahead. And the next second, hey! Bai Lianxin mischievously pulled up Gu Tai's hair and found that Gu Tai, who was hiding under her hair, was looking at her. Her cheeks couldn't help but turn red. What are you peeking at? Bai Lianxin stared at Gu Tai with a wicked smile on her face. At this moment, Bai Lianxin slightly bent down, otherwise she would not be able to see Gu Tai from the front. Loose clothes also create gaps between the clothes and the body due to the forward leaning of the body, and from time to time, a gentle breeze suddenly rushes into the clothes, which is very comfortable. But this move undoubtedly gave Gu Tai an opportunity to take advantage of. The quality of the T-shirts distributed by the school is not very good, and they will become somewhat transparent after wearing them for a short time, so in the scorching summer, besides bringing high temperatures and sweat, it can also make boys' blood boil, especially with Gu Tai nowadays. The scene in front of Gu Tai at this moment is what all boys dream of. This. Do. Although Gu Tai said so with her mouth, her eyes never lowered and she stared blankly ahead. After all, with such a good figure, he needs to carefully examine it. Bai Lianxin paused for a few seconds, her eyelashes trembling slightly, as if she was a bit shy from Gu Tai's fiery gaze. Girls in high school didn't know more or less about things between men and women, and Bai Lianxin was no exception. She was well aware of how much temptation she was for Gu Tai now. But that's what she wants. Bai Lianxin had no intention of getting up, but instead leaned closer to Gu Tai. Since you've seen it, why haven't you closed your eyes? Or do you really want to see it? Bai Lianxin's seductive words directly made Gu Tai unable to bear them, and these presumptuous words also made his heart hot. Previously, he was almost isolated from women and only felt loved by them when his sister was at home. In the past, he also fantasized about having a romantic relationship in high school. But due to his height deficiency and a slight cowardice in his personality, no one had a favorable impression of him, and he was just one of so many boys, ultimately only able to live the entire high school period alone. At this moment, Gu Tai obediently closed her eyes. However, Bai Lianxin covered Gu Tai's face and gently shook it. All right, I've already said I like you. Can't I do this? Ah. Gu Tai looked like a child being played with, unsure whether to open her eyes or not. Seeing Gu's silly appearance, Bai Lianxin suddenly laughed. Later, Gu Tai still opened her eyes and showed great surprise. Is this true? But we just got to know each other, right? Gu Tai was a bit confused, so. Although he didn't know Bai Lianxin before, he still heard some rumors about the school flower. It is said that the school flower refused to confess 3 times within a week, and even said that she wouldn't talk about boyfriends during high school. Although it is only hearsay, since it has been spread, it naturally has some authenticity. You may have just met me, but I have already known you, Xiao Zhengtai. Bai Lianxin sat directly on the only bed and then lay down. Gu Tai looked at Bai Lianxin without any disguise, completely different from when she just spoke to Lao Wang. Is this the other side of the school flower? Or is this the side that shows me? So, do you want to be my boyfriend? Bai Lianxin suddenly asked at this moment. Ah, why do you ask that? Why are you now asking yourself if you want to be her boyfriend, even though it was proposed by yourself? Isn't that nonsense? As you said, you don't know me or understand me. You just created a false, true, and innocent love story in some rumors, but do you really like me? Or is your confession just for fun? Bai Lianxin lay in bed, looking at the ceiling and saying a bunch of very reasonable things. I have also thought about what you said. Although I don't know you, since I have the seed that can produce love, why don't I give it a place to grow? As Gu Tai lowered her head and spoke, Bai Lianxin slowly sat up and looked at Gu Tai, her eyes filled with complexity and pity. So, I am willing. I am very willing, although I don't know what the future will be like. I think only with a beginning can there be results, right? Speaking of this, Gu Tai's heart is actually somewhat blank. It's over, I have no idea what I just said is useful, I just blurted out all the things I thought in my mind. Ah. Will Bai Lianxin not mock me, saying that I am an irresponsible person? Or is it that I am a heartless person? When Gu Tai slowly looked up to see Bai Lianxin's attitude, Bai Lianxin had already walked up to Gu Tai again. However, this time, Bai Lianxin smiled happily. What are you doing? Gu Tai looked at Bai Lianxin in front of her with some confusion. Alas, why is she at the same height as me, and I haven't seen her bend down? Gu Tai wanted to look down, but Bai Lianxin suddenly grabbed Gu Tai's face with her hand. Gu Tai's eyes widened. What do you want to do? This is a school. Do you think it's not pleasing to me, or is it in a daze? Gu Tai felt his lips being blocked by something soft, and at this moment, his head couldn't control itself and let go. I can only feel my lips being forcibly occupied. The next second, Gu Tai felt something suddenly come out of her mouth that didn't belong to her, moving and making her feel very confused. A few more seconds passed before he realized it. Was he forcibly kissed? Or was he forcibly kissed by the school flower? As Bai Lianxin slowly moved away, Gu Taikai was liberated from the feeling of having his head empty. At this moment, Gu Taikai realized that Bai Lianxin was half kneeling in front of him, completely ignoring whether the ground was dirty or not. You. Gu Tai covered her mouth in surprise and couldn't speak. That was my first kiss, so it's gone like this. Although the other party is a beautiful school flower with a white heart, he has never experienced such a situation before. At this moment, Bai Lianxin's eyes were a bit confused, and her fingers were placed on her lips, seemingly enjoying the feeling just now. Since you agree, it's reasonable for me to do so. Bai Lianxin looked at Gu Tai, who had not fully reacted yet, and said softly. Gu Tai doesn't know how to answer. If that's the case, I still want to. I know what I'm asking is too much, there's no need to force it. As soon as Gu Tai said the next second, Bai Lianxin rushed forward again, and at this moment, Gu Tai understood. Maybe he wants Bai Lianxin to do something, Bai Lianxin may really do it. After the two parted ways again, Bai Lianxin looked at him affectionately, and Gu Tai didn't know what to say. Why were you in the restroom for so long just now? Gu Tai suddenly remembered what had just happened. Bai Lianxin had been alone in the restroom for the first 10 minutes, which was quite strange. Can you say that you really came to that? It did hurt a bit earlier, but it's almost healed now. Gu Tai frowned. This situation won't improve so quickly, will it? Looking at Bai Lianxin half lying in front of me, since everything just happened, shouldn't this be okay? Later, Gu Tai asked Bai Lianxin to lie in bed and not move. Although I didn't know what Gu Tai meant, Bai Lianxin still followed suit. Gu Tai looked around the medical room, searching for something. There should be a heating bag here, right? Not long after, Gu Tai found a new heating bag. With a simple operation, Gu Tai placed the heating bag on Bai Lianxin's belly, hoping to make her feel more comfortable. Bai Lianxin also knows what Gu Tai is doing. With just a faint smile, she lay on the bed, while Gu Tai finished everything and sat by the bed. Chapter 5. Solitude in the Medical Room. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What do you want to ask? Look at your hesitant expression. Bai Lianxin actually feels a bit uncomfortable, but she can still bear it, and the heating bag sent by Gu Tai can indeed make her feel more relaxed. She gently caressed her stomach, and her loose clothes had slight undulations. After catching a glimpse, Gu Tai was worried that she might be nervous again, so she turned her head and said, "You knew me before." "Why?" Bai Lianxin smiled lightly, as if she had already known that Gu Tai was going to ask this question, "Just because I like you." Gu Tai. What kind of answer is this? Do you really like me? But why avoid my question? Gu Tai looked up at Bai Lianxin and saw that the corners of her eyes drooped. Looking down, she seemed to be feeling a bit depressed. "Don't you want to say it?" "Forget it then, we'll gradually learn more later." Just as Gu Tai lowered her head again, Bai Lianxin looked up and saw that Gu Tai was still lowering her head, afraid to look at her. Then Bai Lianxin laughed, just like what she had heard, not daring to look at others in any way. Although Gu Tai didn't know, Bai Lianxin started paying attention to Gu Tai very early on. However, she decided not to say anything for the time being. They had just started, so let's slowly talk about their own affairs with Gu Tai later. Gu Tai looked at the ground and didn't quite understand what Bai Lianxin meant by being saved. He was certain that he had not had much contact with her before. But don't you have to ask too much? In that case, don't ask. Gu Tai is not someone who likes to ask about others' privacy. Xiao Gu. Although I agree to be your girlfriend, does our combination look a bit strange to others? How about we make a special couple? Upon hearing what Bai Lianxin said, Gu Tai's face immediately turned red with embarrassment. A special couple? Do you mean to do something special? Or is it something else? While Gu Tai was daydreaming, Bai Lianxin smiled knowingly and slowly extended her long thighs outward. Not long after, Bai Lianxin's thigh moved to Gu Tai's eyes. Ah! Gu Tai saw Bai Lianxin's thigh and felt a little panicked for a moment, then looked up at Bai Lianxin. At this moment, Bai Lianxin was looking at Gu Tai's reaction with a wicked smile on her face. Can you say that? Is this special treatment? What are you trying to do? Shall I rub her legs? But looking at Bai Lianxin's legs up close, Gu Tai couldn't help but stare wide. I wanted to say before, what is your height? Gu Tai is a bit shy, but this is also a question he is very curious about. If you want me to say something, shouldn't you say it first? However, if you don't want to say it, I won't force it. Bai Lianxin was momentarily stunned, then smiled and said, but she still cared about Gu Tai's emotions in her words. Her big eyes occasionally looked at Gu Tai. Gu Tai waved his hand repeatedly and said, I'm fine. My height is 160 centimeters, which can be considered the lowest in the class. I don't care about my height either. Bai Lianxin looked at Gu Tai waving her hands repeatedly, feeling a bit insecure but also a bit shy, with her head lowered. She couldn't help but feel that Gu Tai in front of her was very cute. Bai Lianxin chuckled lightly, then tilted her legs to the right and immediately landed on Gu Tai's lap, which was in front of Gu Tai's eyes. Gu Tai looked at these incredibly smooth thighs, without any flaws, as if they should not have appeared on a student. Even wearing stockings wouldn't have such a good effect, would it? Gu Tai couldn't help but think in her heart. Xiao Gu, my legs are a bit painful, why don't you rub them for me? Bai Lianxin said softly. Although Gu Tai is relatively short, he really likes to look at his long thighs, which Bai Lianxin had already noticed before. Gu Tai slowly lifted his hands, and as he was about to touch Bai Lianxin's legs, he trembled lightly again. Is it really? Okay. Gu Tai still stared at the jade leg in front of her, but still asked. No problem. Oh, Bai Lianxin said coquettishly, her legs occasionally shaking and her delicate skin occasionally shaking. After obtaining Bai Lianxin's consent again, Gu Tai swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and then seemed to have the courage in her heart. With a flick of her hand, she had already put it on. This tactile sensation slightly warmed skin, without any obstruction of movement, so smooth, so comfortable. Ah! Gu Tai's hands were moving back and forth on Bai Lianxin's legs, and she accidentally made a sound. Although it is said that Bai Lianxin took the initiative, in reality, she has never let anyone touch her body, even a girl has not. Gu Tai not only touched it, but also constantly moved every inch of the skin on her legs from the calves to the knees, then up from the knees, and then up to the thighs at the same time. Gu Tai used not too much or too much force. Without passing through a place, she gently pinched it, making Bai Lianxin feel the electric shock rushing from her legs to her brain. Bai Lianxin suddenly let out a whimper, and upon hearing it, Gu Tai felt like a child who had done something wrong. She quickly withdrew her hand and stopped immediately. Are you okay? Did I hurt you? Although talking to Bai Lianxin, Gu Tai still didn't look up. If he looked up, he could see Bai Lianxin now, her face flushed like a ripe apple. At this moment, Bai Lianxin still had a very enjoyable expression. The force that Gu Tai is using now is really irresistible. The leg muscles, which were originally slightly sore, are slightly relieved and very comfortable under Gu Tai's touch. This is also the reason why Bai Lianxin can't help but moan. It's okay, it's okay. Xiao Gu, didn't you often help people pinch their legs before? Why do you feel like you're so skilled at pinching your legs? Ah, you said that. Gu Tai scratched her head, seeming a bit embarrassed. Actually, I often pinch my sister's legs at home, and she likes to manipulate me at home, so she learned some techniques. Although it may sound easy to say, Gu Tai still remembers in her heart that her sister hasn't gone to college yet. Every time she comes home, she asks herself to pinch his leg. If he didn't pinch it properly, he would face ruthless iron hands, and he really didn't want to recall that experience. But this also gave him a good skill in pinching his legs. To be honest, he also learned a lot before in order to serve his sister well. That's it. Bai Lianxin nodded, but as soon as Gu Tai exerted her hands, she couldn't help but, making her cry and want to laugh. It turns out that Gu Tai also has a sister, which is a cold knowledge that I didn't know before. What's your sister's name, then? Gu Qingqing. Gu Tai didn't care either and said it directly, although Gu Qingqing had threatened him before not to easily reveal her name to others. But now she can't control herself. Gu Tai thought in her heart with some anger. Bai Lianxin silently recited Gu Qingqing's name again in her mouth and remembered it in her heart. Do you feel a bit comfortable now? At the beginning, it felt a bit hard. You should have exercised before, right? Gu Tai saw that Bai Lianxin didn't feel uncomfortable, so she began to touch it again, and it felt even more reckless. From the base of the thighs to the calves, it is necessary to pinch them well, only in this way can Bai Lianxin completely relax. Since I have this opportunity, how can I not let myself enjoy it? Bai Lianxin nodded lightly, but it took a few seconds for her to react again. Gu Tai didn't look up. This made her even more shy. But why is it so comfortable? He can already be called a professional, right? Steady. Steady. Bai Lianxin, you can't be too comfortable with Zhengtai in front of you, at least don't show it. I usually enjoy running, so my muscles sometimes stiffen and I'm a bit troubled. It turns out to be running. If such a leggy senior runs on the playground, it should also be a very beautiful, scenic line. Due to her height, Gu Tai initially liked to call Bai Lianxin a senior. Remember to do stretching after you finish running, but it's best to have someone pinch your legs more, as it's good for your body. I'm not here to pinch her legs again, it's just a suggestion. I really care about people. Bai Lianxin couldn't hear the meaning behind it and secretly laughed mischievously, saying. I also do stretching on a regular basis, but who is going to pinch my legs? Chapter 6. It's so comfortable to pinch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After hearing what Bai Lianxin said, Gu Tai inexplicably exerted countless forces in her hands, and even pinched her legs even harder. However, this is not to take advantage, it's just to make Bai Lianxin more comfortable. Comfortable, I'm very professional. Although Gu Tai didn't look up, his meaning was all in his words. Bai Lianxin also covered her mouth and wanted to laugh. Initially, she just thought that Gu Tai was a quiet and shy little boy, but now it seems quite interesting. As she was thinking about what to say later, Bai Lianxin felt an incredibly tingling sensation coming from her inner thighs. This is an acupoint in the human body, pinching it more will make the muscles more loose. Gu Tai pinched and said, although she didn't know if what she said was right, but Bai Lianxin is really too comfortable now. Since you're so professional, I'll have to rely on Xiao Gu to help me pinch my legs more. Bai Lianxin blushed and said, now she still couldn't help but want to whimper a few times. It seems that if you want to squeeze your legs more in the future, you also need to practice the ability to not hum. After Bai Lianxin agreed, Gu Tai's mouth grinned wide. After pinching for a while, Gu Tai finally stopped. At this moment, Bai Lianxin was still immersed in comfort. However, when Gu Tai stopped, she quickly realized and moved her legs away from Gu Tai. At this moment, Gu Tai's little hand was still holding something, as if recalling the touch just now. After both of them fell silent for a while, Bai Lianxin tilted her body to allow herself to see Gu Tai directly. My height is 180 centimeters, which is considered the tallest among girls. After hearing Bai Lianxin's voice, Gu Tai's body trembled lightly. Is it 180 centimeters? That's right, my thighs are all that long, so my height should be that number. Let me ask, what do you think of our current relationship? Gu Tai asked softly, feeling very satisfied with the experience he had just had, but he still had to face this practical problem. Bai Lianxin smiled lightly and said. How do you see it? What do I think? Didn't I ask first? It seems we can't ask questions first. Gu Tai couldn't say anything for a moment. After all, this was also his first time in a relationship and he hadn't had much exposure to such things before. However, there are quite a few literary and film works about love. By the way, literary works. This should also be something that can be said. I hope love is something worth cherishing forever. After Gu Tai spoke up, she didn't hear Bai Lianxin's answer for a while. There was no response, and Gu Tai felt a bit uneasy in her heart. She wanted to know the expression on Bai Lianxin's face now, so she slowly lifted her head. What he didn't expect was that at this moment, Bai Lianxin had been staring at him all the time, and looking at Gu Tai's eyes was very pure. What's going on? Is what I said not very good? After meeting Bai Lianxin's eyes, Gu Tai immediately lowered her head again, feeling nervous. Her hands were uncontrollably placed, unsure of what to do. After all, early romantic relationships can sometimes appear fragile. No, not really. This sound, how do you feel like you want to cry? Did I make her cry? This is the first time he has seen a girl crying in front of him since entering high school. He is afraid that it is because what he just said made Bai Lianxin unhappy, so he begins to offer powerless comfort again. I am really a sinner, such a school flower would make me cry. I think the same way. Bai Lianxin exclaimed loudly. Ahem. Gu Tai suddenly looked up, while Bai Lianxin smiled at the corner of her mouth. In the moment Gu Tai looked up, her body tilted forward. Then there was another kiss. Gu Tai looked at Bai Lianxin who was close by and her eyes softened. He seemed to have never seen such beautiful eyes before. After a long time, the two parted ways again. Do you think it's worth following me? Gu Tai still wants to ask. Bai Lianxin smiled sweetly and covered Gu Tai's small face with both hands. I am very dedicated, I hope you are too. Although Bai Lianxin did not give a direct answer, Gu Taixin was also aware of Bai Lianxin's answer. In short, since she agrees to be a girlfriend, there are still many opportunities to get to know each other in the future. However, Bai Lianxin suddenly became serious again, and her eyes looked very serious, which surprised Gu Tai slightly. Originally, good-looking people are always good-looking no matter what. The sudden praise caught Bai Lianxin off guard, and her stern expression just now burst into laughter. You're really good at timing. However, what I have to say next is very important. Very important. What will happen? Do you think we need to go further? No, it can't be so fast, but if it's so serious, it should. University. Should we go to the same one? Ah. Gu Tai's eyes widened. He had never looked at someone so directly before, and now he was looking at Bai Lianxin like this. University. Did you think of college so quickly? But now that I'm in my 3rd year of high school, I only have 1 year left. No, there's still a long time left, right? Bai Lianxin knew that Gu Tai needed time to think. After speaking, she lay down again without looking at Gu Tai, smiling and looking up. Actually, I thought about it a long time ago, and now I can finally say it. Gu Tai is a bit unclear, but he hasn't figured it out yet. However, the time for the two to talk has ended now, as the physical education class has already been completed. At this moment, Bai Lianxin sat up again and placed the heating bag on her stomach. Gu Tai frowned and said, "Is it okay?" Although Gu Tai has never had the experience of dating, he also knows some of these things. In fact, besides going to school, Gu Tai also has some hobbies and interests. And his favorite thing to do is to write articles. However, he has only written a few essays, and he is not sure if what he has written is prose. In short, he had tried to post it online before, but only these articles. He still likes to write his own articles and read them for himself. I'm considering it, I don't know how to make a decision. There's still 1 year left, I'll consider it. I'm just talking, it's okay. Anyway, my current grades are similar to yours. I can go wherever you go to school, right? Bai Lianxin thought this way. Well, the next class is about to start. Let's go now. I remember the next class will be Chinese. However, are we still in our first love period now? Should we do more things? Bai Lianxin suddenly licked her lips and looked down at Gu Tai with affection. Do you think I've been in love before in Chapter 7? You are listening at novelfull.audio. I really don't know what my life will be like after today. I never thought I could talk about such a girlfriend before the college entrance examination. Gu Tai has touched and kissed everything now. After finishing it all in one go, she is now thinking carefully about what to say when she sees others. Can she just say, "Is this my girlfriend, the school flower with a white heart?" In that case, let alone oneself, Bai Lianxin will also be criticized by others. Why do you fall in love with such a short stature? Isn't that too strange? At least it's the school flower of our school. What do you think of us if it's rumored that we went to another school? Can you say that my school flower Bai Lianxin has any strange quirks? Gu Tai is already trying to think through everything that others should say. Then Gu Tai quickly shook her head. This is too scary, no, it can't be like this. Even if it's already a boyfriend and girlfriend, it can't be completely disclosed, and if the teacher knows, they won't be willing to do it. When Gu Tai was about to say this, Bai Lianxin suddenly bent down slightly and looked at Gu Tai's cheek with a smile as she reached out her hand. Seeing Bai Lianxin's face again and recalling the words of others she had just thought of, Gu Tai felt a sense of guilt again in her heart. Why not continue? Bai Lianxin shook her hand again, letting Gu Tai see. Gu Tai was momentarily stunned when she saw the small hand reaching out, and then cast a puzzled gaze. This is the jade hand of the school flower. If someone sees me holding the hand of the school flower, how will Bai Lianxin be treated? Shake hands to show that love has been achieved, Bai Lianxin said with a smile. But Gu Tai still didn't reach out. Bai Lianxin knew that Gu Tai might have thought of something else. Otherwise, he wouldn't have missed such a good opportunity. Tell me, what's still bothering you? Or do you think I just touched it and started to dislike it? Upon hearing Bai Lianxin's words, Gu Tai shook her head repeatedly and her body couldn't help but move back. How could that happen? Your skin is so soft, it feels so refreshing to touch, and I want to touch it a few more times. No, I'm wrong. Is that so? Bai Lianxin looked up for a moment and then looked at Gu Tai, who was quickly bowing her head. She smiled and took a few steps forward and backward, squatting down and directly picking up Princess Gu Tai. Ah! Gu Tai shouted as she was picked up by Bai Lianxin. Ha! Surprisingly light. After Bai Lianxin wrapped up Gu Tai, she waited a few times and felt like she didn't put in too much effort. Quickly. Let me down quickly. Gu Tai buried her head and did not resist too much. What's going on? Why did you suddenly pick me up? What should you do at this moment? By the way, if you are held by the princess, should you bury your head in the other person's chest? No. That's what women do, I'm a man. I cannot do this, absolutely not. But, is it okay to get a little closer? After all, it seems like it has already been touched, so huge, so soft, really, it's all your fault for not controlling yourself and holding me so hard. Bai Lianxin felt the movement of Gu Tai she was holding. Although her body felt a bit strange, she let Gu Tai go and didn't let her down. However, after moving a few times, Gu Tai still defeated herself and did not move again. Is this better? Bai Lianxin lowered her head and looked at Gu Tai in her arms. She really thought that Gu Tai had just been unsatisfied and wondered if this would be better. And Gu Tai was also full of guilt at this moment. Well, put me down. Ah, the touch just now, really, there's no such excitement in doing anything. This is the chest of the school flower goddess, soft and sticky, it's really not to be enjoyed too much. I am truly a divine being, and I can withstand such temptations. Cough cough. Actually, what I want to say is another thing. Ah. Bai Lianxin realized that she had misunderstood and was somewhat surprised, but then she bent down to stare at Gu Tai. Xiao Gu, you're really bad. Are you still trying to take advantage of me like this? That's not right. Since you're a couple, isn't mine yours? It's normal to do this, isn't it? Can you say, have you never been in love before? Gu Tai's face was filled with surprise, and what Bai Lianxin had just said clearly revealed a sense of first love's greenness. Although I may be in my first love, as a boy, I can always see more things, so I can roughly understand what couples may do. No, do you think I've been in love before? Bai Lianxin asked in confusion. Oh, I'm just asking. At this moment, Gu Tai lowered his head again. Although he said he spoke calmly, in his heart, he had already stirred up a storm. Is oneself the first love of a white heart? This I won't be envied to death, will I? By the way, what did you just want to say? I was still curious about it. Bai Lianxin lowered her head and asked, while also reaching out to pull apart Gu Tai's drooping hair. In this way, you can see Gu Tai's face very well. That's right, should we not publicly disclose our becoming a couple for now? What do you think, if someone else finds out that the school belle and someone like me become a couple, and they reject all suitors, what would they think? And even if we don't publicly disclose it, there won't be any distance between us. No way. Gu Tai-Zheng was about to continue speaking, but Bai Lianxin firmly refused, which surprised Gu Tai-Zheng a bit. Because this matter doesn't harm either of them. After Bai Lianxin refused, she didn't speak anymore. Gu Tai slowly looked up and was stunned when she saw Bai Lianxin. Gu Tai saw Bai Lianxin's aggrieved expression for the first time. This really made Gu Tai feel a bit flustered, wanting to do something, but not knowing how to do it, feeling a bit flustered. Suddenly, Gu Tai thought of it. These are all my own thoughts. I think there won't be any problem with a white heart, and I think it's beneficial for both of us, but is this the truth? Am I really trying to justify myself by force? Later, Tai lowered her head and said as if admitting her mistake, I was wrong. I should have asked about your attitude first. You shouldn't just say that. I was wrong. Tai is really admitting his mistake at this moment. He doesn't know how long it has been since he admitted his mistake to others. But after Tai admitted her mistake, Bai Lianxin seemed a bit unwilling. She bit her lips and came forward to hug Tai. Due to the height difference between the two, Tai felt like he was being held by something soft in the moment he was held. After Tai realized this, he took a deep breath. This is it, heaven. This is not your fault. We don't need to deliberately hide it. Since we have confirmed our relationship, we have to hide it again. What is this? We just need to do ourselves well, do what couples should do, and don't let our emotional life be flawed because of others, okay? Bai Lianxin leaned her face against Tai's head and whispered softly. Tai only felt a moment of happiness now, but she still heard what Bai Lianxin said. Don't want others to interfere in your romantic life. Is this really good? However, even she doesn't care, why do I still want to do so much? Tai struggled lightly, and Bai Lianxin released her hands. Bai Lianxin looked at Tai and waited for her answer. After a moment of silence, Tai suddenly looked up. This time, Tai did not avoid Bai Lianxin's gaze, but also looked straight at her. I understand now. Since that's the case, we don't deliberately hide or tell others. If others know, they will know and let them guess. After hearing Tai's answer, Bai Lianxin smiled and said, is that right? We can do whatever we want without anyone else's attention. Tai looked at Bai Lianxin, who was so happy, scratched her temples, pursed her lips, and said. The teaching director still needs to avoid it. Chapter 8. Shaking hands to show our love achievements. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yes, the teaching director still needs to avoid it. Are you really thoughtful? Bai Lianxin lowered her head and smiled lightly, looking at Tai, completely free from the grievances and worries she had just experienced. Is this ability to change emotions too strong? Tai silently gave Bai Lianxin a thumbs up in her heart. However, Tai also smiled, as if she remembered something again. She slowly reached out her hand and then looked at Bai Lianxin. After Bai Lianxin saw it, she instantly understood and quickly reached out her hand, tightly gripping Tai's hand. Tai didn't know why Bai Lianxin had just wanted to shake hands with her, and then asked, does shaking hands have any special meaning? Does it have a special meaning? Bai Lianxin thought for a moment before answering. Shake hands to show that our love has been reached, right? Tai gave a gentle smile. This should be the fastest natural couple development in history. An hour ago, it was still in an unclear state, and now it has developed to this point. However, what Tai didn't know was that Bai Lianxin had been secretly thinking of him in her heart a long time ago, even though Bai Lianxin didn't know about Tai at that time. Although I don't know what else will happen, it should be very interesting afterwards. Tai thought to herself. Then the two walked out of the medical room together, and at this moment, they were still in a state of clasping their hands. At this point, it has been some time since the bell rang. Although it was a big break, most students have already returned to the classroom because there is air conditioning in the classroom, so students are basically unwilling to move outside the classroom. Tai stood next to Bai Lianxin, thought carefully, and then turned his face. That. Bai Lianxin bent down to listen as soon as she heard Tai speak. It's nothing. Tai swallowed back what she had just wanted to say in her heart. At this moment, Tai looked at Bai Lianxin, the school flower who was bending down and bowing her head, but he still hasn't fully adapted to it. I am so short and do not have any advantages in other aspects. Even if I achieve good results, can I withstand this incredible love? Bai Lianxin looked at Gu Tai with a hint of confusion in her eyes. I believe Gu Tai is still a bit uneasy about this sudden romance, but time will prove everything. I have been waiting for this day for a long time, and it is impossible for it to easily run away. Don't worry, Xiao Tai. Even if someone else finds out, I don't care. Xiao Tai. Gu Tai, who was frowning, was somewhat surprised when she heard this title. How about the title I gave you? Is it okay? Bai Lianxin smiled and said, this is the best title she had thought about for a long time before deciding. Little lady. Why does this sound so like a mother shouting for her son? No, 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 since it was said by my girlfriend, that's the best way to address her. Sure, of course, but... Since you've called me that, what should I call you? Gu Tai hasn't talked much to girls before, and calling her name directly is a bit unfamiliar. Bai Lian thought for a moment. Call it Xiaox Xingxin. Be careful. Love heart. Gu Tai is also somewhat speechless. Be careful what name this is, do you want me to be more careful? It's better to be in love, even though it's the same as Si Xiaoqian calling your name. You already know Si Xiaoqian, Bai Lian thought to herself, then pulled Gu Tai to stand in the shadow of the medical room. In that case, let me tell you more. There are still a few minutes left for class. Gu nodded, after all, he is a friend of love, so it's not wrong to know more. She's a friend I've been playing with since I was young, but I haven't seen her much for a long time before. I've only recently started to hang out with her frequently, and she's been very attached to me lately. Since we're already a couple, we should spend more time alone now. Bai Lianxin has already started planning her spare time at this moment. However, at this moment, Gu Tai was very concerned about what Bai Lianxin said. During this period, I haven't seen each other for a while. Did something happen? No, 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 don't think too much. It could be because I went on a trip or something else. This is all very normal, okay? At this moment, Gu Tai remembered the way Si Xiaoqian teased her, it was really annoying. The romance in the third year of high school can easily collapse, but be prepared. Gu Tai deliberately said this to scare Bai Lianxin. But Bai Lianxin didn't eat this trick at all, just chuckled lightly, and even bent down to scratch Gu Tai's nose. Even if you don't want me anymore, I still have you in my heart. Bai Lianxin's words also made Gu Tai feel a bit awkward. However, at this moment, Gu Tai only treated this sentence as a humorous remark and didn't pay much attention, but Bai Lianxin was very serious. Alright, let's go, it's getting late too. Bai Lianxin deliberately walked on the side that could serve as the sun for Gu Tai, moving forward. But how could Gu Tai not notice this small gesture? With a gentle smile, she lowered her head and followed up. The medical room was not far from the classroom, and not long after, the two of them walked up to the teaching building. We're going to the classroom, so let's split up first. Oh, by the way, where did you sit in class? Gu Tai said. There are not many people in the corridor, and there is only 1 minute left until the formal class, so almost everyone is in the classroom. In fact, they have just been promoted to the third year of high school, and this time the class has changed. They are the top students who have been assigned, and they just got their seats allocated this morning. Although it is a new class, Old Wang is widely recognized as a strict teacher by everyone. Everyone knows him and is very afraid of him, which is why we had the same scene as before. However, now Gu Tai really doesn't know where Bai Lianxin is sitting. It's right behind you, Bai Lianxin gestured to her seat, and Gu Tai looked up clearly. Is it right behind me? It's true that I kept my head down when dividing seats, only hearing my own seat without paying much attention. A school flower sitting behind him who doesn't even know is probably the only one left. However, it's not my fault, after all, it's normal not to notice that such a short period of time has passed since the third year of high school. Little did they know that Bai Lian was complaining about him in her heart at this moment. I deliberately walked past Zhengtai so many times when I changed seats, but Zhengtai just couldn't see it. It really angered me. Ding! The class bell rang, and after giving Bai Lianxin a glance, Gu Tai walked into the classroom as if nothing had happened. And Bai Lianxin smiled and slowly walked into the classroom, but their brief stay at the door still caught the attention of some people. Chapter 9. I and she have a good time together. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. As the sound of Lang Lang's book gradually faded away, the bell for class soon rang. As soon as class was over, Gu Tai lay on the table and let out a heavy breath. That's it, I didn't listen at all just now. I'm all thinking about my relationship with Bai Lianxin, even though I don't really need to listen to Chinese classes. But the scenes of being with Bai Lianxin are still vivid in my mind. However, speaking of it, isn't love sitting right behind me? Do you want to turn around and talk to her, but isn't that too obvious? Although I don't have to worry about it anymore, I did care a bit at first. But I'm just saying hello as a new classmate, so I should be able to. After thinking it over, just as Gu Tai was about to turn around, the bell rang again. Done. I forgot that the break for this class was very short. You won't blame me for falling in love later, will you? As the teacher walked onto the podium, Gu Tai became serious again. This is a math class. You need to listen carefully, get rid of distractions first, and talk about other things later. At this moment, Bai Lianxin was secretly covering her mouth and laughing. Just now, Gu Tai tilted her body for a moment, seeming to want to talk to herself, but then turned back on her side, and finally seemed to be really about to turn around, but the bell rang. This scene really made Bai Lianxin couldn't help but laugh. How should we punish such a cute little girl afterwards? Bai Lianxin looked at the math teacher in front of her and raised her lips slightly. So this is the math teacher. After the math class is over and it's time to finish school, Feichuan High School is not a boarding school. Except for a few people who will be at school, most people will go home. At this moment, Gu Tai was making a certain decision in her heart. Love should not have left yet, and there was no sign of getting up and leaving behind. Are you waiting for me? No, shouldn't we usually go with Si Xiaoqian? After all, they are good friends. Love, then I'll leave with Chen Ming first. You still went home alone today, right? Si Xiaoqian's voice echoed in Gu Tai's ear. Ah, isn't Si Xiaoqian going with Lianxin? Who is Chen Ming? This name doesn't sound like a girl's name either. It's her boyfriend, isn't it? Surprisingly, Si Xiaoqian already has a boyfriend. No wonder, love hasn't stood up all the time. Damn Si Xiaoqian, if you have a boyfriend, you don't care about your good sisters, right? You don't care about me. Immediately, Gu Taimeng turned his head and turned back to see Bai Lianxin with a wicked smile on his face. Wow, you're finally willing to turn around. I'm still thinking about when you'll turn around and decide what kind of punishment to give you. Punishment. Gu Taiwei was a little panicked. What kind of punishment would it be? Shouldn't it be too strict, right? Do you want to throw me into the pile of other women and turn a blind eye to me, or do you want to say no, 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 how could love treat me like this? Gu Tai lowered his head fiercely and held the backpack in his hand. Let's go together, shall we? Gu Tai stuttered as they spoke. As classmates around him who had not yet left saw it, they stopped and whispered to each other. Is this Bai Lianxin? The school flower of the whole school. Yeah, I heard that Bai Lianxin is excellent in both character and education, and she has a great figure. Now it seems that she really lives up to her reputation. Ah! Look at how well Bai Lianxin has developed. It's rare for high school students to have such a well-developed personality, right? Really, I'll go. This. It would definitely be great to get up there. Wow, after more than a decade of being determined, I suddenly wanted a girlfriend. It's true that seeing is better than hearing. Such a school flower is rare. You kids who have never seen the world before, who made you judge people like this? This is my girlfriend. Did you make you judge people like this? Damn it, hurry up and get out of here. How could such a class have such a group of people like you? I'm really unlucky. Gu Tai, how are you doing in the infirmary? Jet Song suddenly appeared behind Gu Tai, holding a backpack and preparing to leave. What do you say? Gu Tai looked up at Bai Lianxin in front of her and wanted to see her expression before answering. But as soon as I lifted my eyes, I saw Bai Lianxin looking at the two as if joining in the fun, seemingly completely ignoring the low-pitched discussions and some vulgar language spoken by others. Did she not care about it before? But what kind of gaze was she looking forward to my answer? Or is it testing me the next moment is when life and death are determined? Come on. Jet Song. Jet Song suddenly felt Gu Tai's aura surge around him, and couldn't help but feel a little excited in his heart. I have to say it. Sigh. Let's talk. I have a great time with her. Finally said it, but this should only be understood by Jet Song, right? Most people probably don't know that Bai Lianxin and I went to the medical room together. Wow. Jet Song looked surprised and immediately squatted down, lying next to Gu Tai's face. Really? When I was in physical education class, I was really looking forward to your progress. Tell me more when you get home. Then Jet Song left gracefully, saying as he left, let's go, let's go, let's go. What's so beautiful about it? Can you say you can see the flowers? With Jet Song's disturbance, a large part of the people have already left. After returning home. What does that mean? We're not a family, and why are you so familiar with me? I have only known each other for a few days. Gu Tai only felt that Jet Song was a strange person. He had only confessed his failure before, and then he succeeded in confessing himself. If it were someone else, I would definitely hate myself to death in my heart, right? But how could Jet Song talk to himself as if nothing had happened, and it seemed like he wanted to promote the relationship between the two? However, at first, Jet Song's confession seemed to have been on the rise, without much purpose, so that's understandable. After Gu Tai figured it out, he slightly looked up, but Gu Tai suddenly shouted, his body involuntarily falling back, and his chair also seemed to be flipping over. Upon seeing this, Bai Lianxin immediately stood up and quickly reached out to grab Gu Tai steadily from the front, which prevented her from flipping over. After stabilizing Gu Tai, Bai Lianxin squatted down again, her lips slightly raised, and her mood seemed to be very good. Gu Tai didn't expect Bai Lianxin to squat in front of her just now, staring at her in a daze. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made a fool of herself. But wow, just as my heart was leaning forward, those soft and gentle pears pressed against my face. Feeling really comfortable. Chapter 10. I want to take you home. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sorry, I didn't expect you to be in front of me. Gu Tai wanted to apologize for what happened earlier, but as soon as he looked up, he saw several people standing outside the door, looking at him fiercely. Although he knew that school beauties like Bai Lianxin would definitely be pursued every day, he didn't expect them to come so soon. The person in front of the door didn't look at Bai Lianxin but stared at Gu Tai. Gu Tai was very clear about what that gaze represented. I can only hope that it's not because of love that you see me. It's okay, what else are we saying about apologizing to each other? Didn't we just flip over? Bai Lianxin smiled and didn't pay any attention to the few pairs of eyes outside the door. I'm just curious, why are you keeping your head down? And it seems like you're still thinking about something. Bai Lianxin then asked, then moved her body and happened to block Gu Tai. She also glared fiercely at the back. A while ago, Zhou Sheng came almost every day and he didn't pay attention. She was very clear that Zhou Sheng wanted to use this method, and there was no doubt that the other people in the school had an ambiguous relationship between them. But now, Zhou Xing's plan has fallen through, and he must be unhappy in his heart. She won't get used to it. Gu Tai is still thinking about bowing her head. I'm just thinking about something. If I look down, I'm used to it. I often do this, and when I walk, I often bump into people. I really want to make changes, but... Gu hesitated and couldn't explain clearly. I don't know when, walking with his head down has become his norm. Well, then if we often walk together afterwards, I won't bump into anyone by your side. And if you want something, I'll wait for you. Bai Lianqin smiled, but her eyes showed a complex emotion, and her hand to pack things slowed down. Will you wait for me? Gu Tai's expression froze for a moment. He didn't expect Bai Lianqin to have such concerns, constantly considering herself. However, most of the things I think about today are related to you. Let's not talk about these things for now. This also indirectly proves my love. Yes. Let's go then. People have already walked around. Bai Lianqin seemed to be very skilled in pulling Gu Tai up and picking up Gu Tai's backpack on her own. After picking it up, Bai Lianqin was somewhat surprised. Your backpack is very light, isn't it carrying anything? If you go home to study in high school, generally speaking, the teacher will assign some homework, and most students will also do some other studies on their own, so they will pack a lot of books. People like Gu Tai, who have very few books, are either not learning or very confident in themselves. I have study materials at home. I don't need to pack too many books. Gu Tai stutters when speaking, and her eyes occasionally look to the side. Bai Lianqin let out a meaningful, and then looked at Gu Tai's full drawer, unsure of what was on her mind. Let's go then. After a little thought, Bai Lianqin turned around and saw several people at the door. Her expression immediately became serious. However, from Gu Tai's perspective, he couldn't see any change in Bai Lianqin's expression. He just stood behind Bai Lianqin, ready to follow her. Did the two of them stop by? Let's walk together. Even if it's not going our way, it shouldn't be a problem to walk together to the school gate, right? When the two of them walked out of the door, a wicked voice came from the side. Yo! Isn't this the legendary Little Zhengtai, Gu Tai? Why are you now following behind Bai Lianqin as a junior assistant? Do you really think you have the qualifications? The tone of this voice was very strong, and Gu Tai paused slightly when she heard it, knowing that she was about to be stopped. Gu Tai glanced briefly and saw a long-legged boy. He can only say this, because he didn't look up, but based on his years of experience, when he can only see the other person's legs or a little upper body without looking up, the other person must be very tall. After seeing this scene, students who were still staying at school in the surrounding area also accelerated their pace. Soon, the floors that were originally slightly noisy quieted down. Gu Tai knew that the boy in front of him had almost reached the same height as Bai Lianqin. Zhou Sheng, what are you saying about Xiao Tai? He's not my follower. Before Gu Tai could speak, Bai Lianqin retorted, not letting Gu Tai feel any anger. However, Zhou Sheng. Isn't this the person who is often called by the teaching director? It is said that he almost got fired during the last fight, but his father seems to know someone with a background is standing at the door at this moment to wait for love. Are you a pursuer? Are you jealous when you see me walking with love? Or do you want to get rid of me quickly? I can't afford to provoke such a person. Ha, little madam. Why do you call him so affectionate? Is this your newly adopted godson? Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Zhou Xing smiled, and the group of people around him also laughed along. To be honest, when Gu Tai and Bai Lianqin stand together, those who don't know will really think they are siblings or mother and son, but it is very difficult to say that mother and son are together. After all, Bai Lianqin is still a young girl in her prime. But Zhou Xing deliberately said this just to make Gu Tu listen. However, After hearing this, Bai Lianxin no longer spoke well to Zhou Sheng. Being humiliated herself is not a big deal, but with Gu Tai, she can't bear it anymore. Zhou Sheng, I have clearly rejected you. If you still cling to me, then I'll tell you again today that I like Gu Tai. Alright. I hope you don't cling to me anymore from today on, and don't think about following Gu Tai's advice. Otherwise, you won't want to stay at this school. After saying these words, Bai Lianxin walked out with Gu Tai. Time was so short that Gu Tai didn't have a chance to react until the end of the corridor. Gu Tai didn't expect Zhou Sheng to let them go so easily. At this moment, a person next to Zhou Sheng said, "Boss, why don't you stop them, stop Bai Lianxin, and then take Gu Tai away?" As soon as he said it, Zhou Sheng slapped the person directly. "You're silly, Bai Lianxin is a taekwondo master with a black belt and 3 dan. Do you think you can beat her? Moreover, her background is not something that people like us can afford to provoke. Boss, you still." The person who was beaten seemed to want to say something, but he slapped again. "I pursue Bai Lianxin not only because I like her, but also because if I can climb up the high branch, I will have no worries about food and clothing in the future, understand?" I understand. What should we do next?" Zhou Sheng looked at Gu Tai, who was following Bai Lianxin, and a wicked smile appeared on his face. "I can't deal with Bai Lianxin, can't I deal with Gu Tai? Let's go first." Then Zhou Sheng and his younger brother also walked out, but they didn't go in the same direction. Gu Tai breathed a sigh of relief when she saw the distant Zhou Sheng and his companions. "It seems like we have gone too far, but what I just said in my heart is really incredibly handsome. I don't even need to say anything more, my heart is so scared that they dare not speak." However, it is said that Zhou Sheng dares to provoke almost anyone in school, and I have also heard of his teasing of young girls several times. Why doesn't he dare to resist when it comes to love heart? Anyway, my family's strong love heart must have been frightened by its aura. "Xiao Tai, where is your home?" The two of them have just arrived at the school gate, and the scorching clouds in the sky are very peculiar. It's not too late yet. Bai Lianxin stopped and didn't know where to go. She wanted to take Gu Tai home first and then leave on her own. After guessing Bai Lianxin's thoughts, he looked up and said, "My home is very close to the school, just on an old street around the school, so I usually walk home and you'll be there soon. Don't worry about me." The place where he lives, which young people don't like to go to, looks shabby and lacks any trendy feeling. So it's better to let others go less. "Is it the old street?" Bai Lianxin murmured softly, then smiled and said to Gu Tai, "It's okay, I want to take you home. I haven't seen your house yet. Sai, do you want to take me back?" "Really? Isn't this the real version of a boyfriend sending his girlfriend home? It's just the opposite. By the way, where is your home? You can't just let your heart know your home, but also let yourself know your heart's home, right?" After hesitating for a moment, Bai Lianxin smiled lightly and said, "Actually, my home is not in this area, but my hometown is here. There is a house in the suburbs." "The suburbs? That's a bit far, why don't you go home first?" Feichuan High School is located near the city center between the suburbs. If it's in the suburbs, it's a bit far away. However, Bai Lianxin shook her head and pushed Gu Tai forward. "Lead the way quickly, I have no problem." Gu Tai also had no choice but to lead the way with her love heart.